So as many of you know, there have been protests in front of the homes of Supreme Court justices. It's overtly illegal. It's like unquestionably illegal to do this because free speech is, or I should say justice is more important than free speech. So we basically, the idea from the founding fathers and in precedent is you can have your free speech, but courts need to adjudicate. And if you try to protest, picket, parade, or whatever in front of a member of the court's home in an effort to intimidate or change those proceedings, you are committing a crime. It is a slap on the wrist crime. No one's going to destroy your life over this. It's like up to a year in jail, which basically I think it's a misdemeanor. I don't know how they do the laws at the federal level, but these people should be arrested. They're not being arrested, and more importantly, we have Jen Psaki encouraging illegal behavior. Now, look, I get it. Nonviolent civil disobedience, I'm mostly cool with. But that means people get arrested, and these people are not getting arrested. Take a look at this clip the Post-Millennial posted. Just listen to Jen Psaki yourselves. Actually, I think I got to fix. I always got to make sure I set the audio right, otherwise it just doesn't play.
Change it.
There we go. There we go.
So I know that there's an outrage right now, I guess, about protests that have been peaceful to date, and we certainly continue to encourage that outside of judges' homes, and that's the president's position.
The president's position is to encourage peaceful protests outside of judges' homes. Okay, well, I'm real quick, I'm going to read the law. All right. 18 USCA 1507. Whoever with the intent of interfering with, obstructing, or impeding the administration of justice or with the intent of influencing any judge, juror, witness, or court officer in the discharge of his duty, pickets or parades in or near a building housing a court of the United States, or in or near a building or residence occupied or used by such judge, juror, witness, or court officer, or with such intent uses any sound truck or similar device, or resorts to any other demonstration in or near any such building or residence, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 1 year or both. Nothing in this section shall interfere with or prevent the exercise by any court of the United States of its power to punish for contempt. It quite literally says any other demonstration. Now look, I'm not saying these people protesting should get felony charges and life in prison. I'm saying when you engage in nonviolent civil disobedience, we recognize you're going to get arrested for it. You're going to get a fine. You're probably going to get court supervision. The judge is going to say you can't go back. And that's it. You made your point. You did something that some people would find crossing the line. You get your punishment for it, but nothing's happening.
I kind of just now listened to it for like the second time or the third time. I realized when she says, and we encourage that people are misinterpreting that they encourage the outrage against it. That people are like, no, that's what she meant, that they encourage the outrage. But she obviously, if you listen to the way she speaks, is encouraging the people being outside the homes of the judges.
Right. Well, I don't think anybody assumed otherwise.
Yeah. If you read it in text, I could see how it could get taken out of context.
Let me show you what the Daily Mail did on this one. They took her quote and they added hyphens to change the context, which is amazing. They say, I know that there's an outrage right now, I guess, about protests that have been peaceful to date. Pause. And we certainly continue to encourage that. Pause. Outside of judges' homes, as if to imply she's really saying if they're going to be protesting, they should be peaceful, instead of saying she encourages the protests themselves outside of judges' homes.
Yeah, I mean, what's the point of protesting outside the house of an unelected judge? Are you going to give him a constitutional argument he hasn't heard of? It's an intimidation tactic. It's so obvious.
Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's an intimidation or not. It literally says influence the court, influencing any judge, juror, witness, or court officer. If you go outside of a court and you try to influence the judge, juror, witness, or court officer, you get in trouble for it.
This is only in relates to like physical buildings being outside, because like if you try and influence them through the internet, like create a campaign of mass people emailing or something, that's legal.
Well, this is specifically picketing or parading, and it says any other demonstration. Yo, I'm just saying, I don't think it's the apocalypse. I think they definitely shouldn't go to people's homes. I think that's over the line. But I just think when you get to the point where the January 6th trespassers, not the rioters I get, you arrest those guys. Mm-hmm. But the people who had the doors opened, who have been locked up in solitary for like 6 months to a year or longer, some of these people. And then it turns out the judge is like, oh, the cops let you in, your case dismissed. The boot that comes down on the people on the right for basically what is a very similar law versus the people who repeatedly and continually do this and then are encouraged to do it by the president, the disparity in law enforcement is just absolutely insane.
Yeah, I don't want to assume, but I would imagine that if there was another law being considered and that it was something Joe Biden wanted to get passed and people were protesting outside judges, they'd have referenced this immediately and went and arrested them all. I don't know. but that's the feeling of this partisanry.
Could you imagine if like Proud Boys showed up to a judge's house?
They'd
And
get
they were-
arrested
I mean,
immediately.
domestic terrorists, insurrectionists, they're trying to burn the country down. That's all you would hear from me. And not only that, but it wouldn't simply be the case that they would get arrested. They would start digging through tweets from conservative politicians who said that they were against this potential decision and tried to charge them with insurrection. I mean, we would never, ever hear the end of it. We would never hear the end of it. It would be in the news cycle repeatedly. Remember when those Proud Boys went outside that judge's house? But because it's the left doing it, nobody cares.
They tried to like frame it as a vigil, which is like a silent thing, where you're standing vigil at night, you're keeping an eye out and scouting, and you're quiet while you're doing it. But if they're making noise outside their houses, it's just a full-on protest.
This is actually just a continuation of the Biden 2020 campaign, right, where they said, okay, every illegal immigrant can come across and get free health care, right? They said that in the Democratic primary debate. He raised his hand.
Right.
Kamala raised her hand. During the 2020 campaign, as you guys were talking about this week, they bailed out rioters in Minnesota, including rapists and pedophiles. So it's not a surprise that they're encouraging lawlessness themselves here. That is the Democratic Party. It's obviously the party of defunding the police. It's the party of not enforcing laws.
At what point do we just start acting like there is no government? Let me elaborate. The media lied about Kyle Rittenhouse. They repeatedly said that he shot and killed black people, which was just not true. They lied about what happened. They just it was insane watching the actual trial and then seeing those lies. And I'm like, okay, these people can't be argued with. They've made this story up. In fact, the Daily Beast used to be considered credible by NewsGuard, like 100%. And then you watch it slowly go down. Now they're considered fake news with a red exclamation point because they refuse to correct all of the fake garbage they've posted. I wonder if the people at NewsGuard, which is like a news rating agency, are all getting red-pilled like crazy because they're like, the New York Times always tells the truth. Then they start doing fact-checking and they're like, guys, we had to actually fact-check them and they lied several times. So I'm looking at this. I'm looking at the double standard that, we all perceive as people who like the Constitution and the Republic. Obviously, there's no double standard for the left because if it's good for the revolution, it's good. If it's bad for the revolution, it's bad. But for us, we're like, hey, we want laws enforced equally. I believe people have a right to protest. I believe you have a right. I believe in leeway for nonviolent civil disobedience. But you at least expect there to be some upholding the law. So at what point do people just say there's no point to engage with the system, negotiate with, collaborate with, or even consider?
It would probably be if there's a mass starvation. It would be like a desperation thing if something like that were to happen.
I just mean, like, what happens if people stop participating in national level politics in any sense because they're like, this is pointless?
That's
And
kind of
states-
the point. That's why we have representatives.
Well, look, here's what I want to say. With Roe v. Wade, as soon as these judges got in, you saw a bunch of red states start passing these abortion restrictions. And the left was saying, this is illegal. It violates precedent. You can't do this. But the states were like, we're going to do it anyway. We've continually seen this throughout the past couple of years where red states and blue states just do whatever they want, regardless of the federal government.
It is kind of the impetus of the United States. Say, hey, man, the King George was doing whatever he wanted. We were like, yeah, we're going to do what we want. So that's the United States.
Yeah, I mean, parties are generally selective.
Let it out, Seamus. I can tell your point is gold.
Thank you. No, it's like going to be the most boring point I've ever made. But
No pressure.
when it comes to sanctuary cities
Exactly.
or exactly,
No, you're right. No, you're right.
decriminalization of certain. We have my translator here. For
I need to cough more.
or decriminalization of certain drugs, they're completely fine defying the federal government. But if you do so to protect unborn children, then that's illegal, and they don't have any respect for our political process.
The issue right now, everything keeps looping back to the Roe v. Wade thing because that's what this protest is about. But it's conservatives are like, states should have the ability to choose, and if blue states want to pass, unrestricted abortion, well, then that's their state's right. That's literally what the argument is right now. There are conservatives obviously saying it should be banned outright, but right now in politics they're like, return it to the state legislatures, and the left is like, no, red states should be forced to allow abortion. At what point do people just say, like, dude, we're not going to participate with you anymore, and we're going to do whatever we want. What are you going to do about it? California's doing it already.
I'm going to try again. So, yes, I think that's the point in large part. They want anyone who isn't on the far left to stop participating. That's the whole idea. You don't get a voice. This government isn't here to represent you. It's here to force the ideological whims of a small minority of this country onto you. It's the purpose of the political system at this point.
The irony of that, though, and I'll harken back to this a lot over the course of my campaign, is the Democratic Party is literally being run from people's basements and from their living rooms. The government is not being run in person. This was one of the stories that I wrote at the Free Beacon. I walked all around the Capitol for about 11 miles, walking and just simply taking pictures and taking videos, pulling on doorknobs of the Democrats' Health Committee, which is closed to prevent the spread of germs, which is impossible. The Senate Armed Services Committee, we have some conflicts going on in the world you might have been aware of. The Foreign Relations Committee, Democrats closed. All of the government is being run on Zoom, which is a huge national security risk, right? All of the Democrats in Congress up until a couple of weeks ago, and the day after my story posted, Chuck Schumer opened his office. But so all of their DC offices are closed. All of their constituent offices around the country are closed. So you're right, they're trying to force conformity, but they're also hiding from accountability, because if you have a problem with how your Democratic member of Congress, like the guy I'm running against, David Trone, you literally can't access him. You go to his offices, and this is true of Democrats around the country, there's literally mail just piling up. You can write to them. You can be the most pro-life person, the most pro-choice person. They literally don't care. They're hiding from accountability. They're using the coronavirus to sort of be able to withdraw from public criticism.
I just think the system is it's already collapsed, and we're kidding ourselves that it hasn't.
It's changed. We're for sure using ancient ideas with modern technology, and it's not translating, because I think they have a right to work remote.
You say that with an abacus in front of your laptop. I like it.
And I will use it if the power goes out.
Okay.
To do that. That's part of why I have it. But honestly, I mean, let's use the best technology we have to communicate in the fastest and most efficient way possible, in my opinion. And these people are still sending letters.
But you need to be able to talk to your representative.
Exactly.
You need to be able to, they need to be available to you.
That's why, like Zoom, like they should have an hour a day where they take video chat with people, public video chats.
But that's the only way they're trying to run the government, is by Zoom. And, you know, my grandparents have no idea how to do that. If you're in parts of Western Maryland where there's horrible rural broadband problems, you can't function like this.
I know all about horrible rural broadband problems.
Yeah.
It took us like 6 months to get internet out here.
Yeah.
Crazy. I mean, we had low quality internet to get business. I mean, it was nuts. And with the new space we're building, it's really difficult. But that's West Virginia. But here's the issue. I don't like the idea of Zoom government.
Yeah.
I don't like the idea that they don't need to look you in the eyes and shake your hand and know you have stood before them in their physical space and said, I live here and here's what I expect from you.
That is important. Like the king used to take court, where people would come in for several hours a day, and he'd be, so bored just listening to the problems. Be like, okay, yeah, you get the money. Okay, yeah, you're the one in trouble. And it works, but it doesn't scale. When you have 3 million people that want to talk to the guy only has 24 hours in a day.
Well, I'll take a number. I mean, what are you going to do? It doesn't matter if you're on Zoom or otherwise. People can't. If there's too many people, there's too many people. The problem I have, and the reason why we don't do Zoom shows with IRL, is that it doesn't work. You don't get a real conversation. I mean, you can have a conversation. It's not the same.
You can't. It's not the same, but you can. I had one with Michael Malice a couple weeks ago, episode 203 of You're Welcome, and it was amazing to have a chance to talk to Michael for an hour. It was amazing. Amazing technology.
But I think part of it is the fact that you two agree, or it wasn't going to be a hostile conversation. If you're having a conversation with someone you disagree with, it's much easier to operate in bad faith and to just try to get dunks and smacks in if you're communicating with them digitally rather than face to face.
And a big part of it is the way the audio doesn't translate. It's binary. So if I speak while you're speaking, one of them cuts out.
There's a reason why, in my opinion, whenever we try and get prominent left personalities on the show, they always say, I'll do it on Zoom. And it's because what they're going to do is, once we bring them on the show and go live, they're going to cut out and it's going to be someone else. That's what they've done, and that's what they want to do. They want to just screw around. And so there have been a few people who have agreed to come on this show that we've had on the show from prominent left influencers. But all these other ones are like, hey, why don't I just do it digitally? And I'm like, because we've seen what you guys do when you do these things digitally.
I'll point out as an aside, it shouldn't be Zoom. If we do this, it should be an open source, non-proprietary, so like Jitsi or Element Matrix or something like that. But to add to your point, yeah, man, there's definitely a risk involved. But when it's like, if you need to listen to a bunch of people from around the country, it makes more sense, I think, to do it, to telecommute it, than to make them all fly out to D.C. and wait for an hour or a day.
Well, that's the point of having district offices, though, right? That you don't have to go to the Capitol. And yet all of these Democrats around the country, you can go to the closest office here. It's probably 30 minutes away in Hagerstown. Been closed for 2 years. So
I think they have to physically go to D.C.
It's a
They
lot
have
ask
to
of a
all
citizen.
wait, are you talking about the representatives or the constituents? Oh, yeah.
I do not like the idea that they telecommute to Congress,
Yeah.
and that's what they've been doing. And it's like you see these congressional hearings, and like the TV asked you a question, sir. It's like no.
In regards to Congress itself, they should be together in person. I agree, because you get more out of a human-to-human contact. But for just listening to people's concerns, citizens, I think that could be at least try it. Telecommute.
Well, yeah. I mean, if a citizen's going to make a phone call, leave a voicemail, send a message.
I want to
to
watch the videos on YouTube.
Sure. That's great.
On Rumble.
I just think elected representatives need to be available to their constituents.
Bingo. And Pelosi, under her rules in the House, they have been wildly abusing the proxy voting system where you as a representative say, I can't come and vote in person due to the coronavirus. And I reported on this extensively about the abuses of the proxy voting system. You'd have Eric Swalwell saying that I can't vote due to the coronavirus. He'd be jet setting around the country. You pull his campaign finance reports. He's spending in lavish hotels. You have other congressmen who are saying, I can't currently vote. They're posting about how they're in Atlanta with Joe Biden for MLK Day. Yep. So the proxy voting system has been rampantly abused, and it lets Democrats just...
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. But if you want to check out the full show live, tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And if you want more special access content, head over to timcast.com and become a member. Your membership helps sustain this company, keep our journalists employed, makes this show happen, and you will get access to exclusive members-only segments of the Timcast IRL podcast, and there's a massive library to check out. So again, go to timcast.com or tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., and we'll see you all there.